When I came up on stage to start the conference yesterday, I mentioned Inc.'s purpose. I don't know who of you was here then, but I talked about Inc.'s purpose supporting the American entrepreneur. I hope you've seen that purpose play out in the last 2 days. I don't know if you can tell, but we do think purpose is important. And I think it's so important to founders in general. Purpose helps you understand why you matter to people. In fact, I think to be successful in the long term, businesses have to have, absolutely required, to have a well thought out brand purpose. I know that firsthand. See, I've always been entrepreneurial and even in corporate jobs, and at one point I had been asked to remake the iconic This Old House, the original home improvement brand. You know it? Anyone here know it? Those guys up there, show on PBS, Bob Vila, TOH we called it. But by the time I got the keys to TOH, it had been around long enough to be satirized on Saturday Night Live. It's Liam Neeson and Seth Meyers doing an Irish version. I think they just argued about where to put the beer, maybe. I don't know. It had been in New Yorker cartoons. There's an example of that. Its various hosts had appeared on Saturday morning TV, sitcoms, even Sesame Street. It even led to the creation of HGTV, and in the early days of that network was a lot of its programming and reruns. But when I arrived, TOH wasn't so new, and it wasn't so novel anymore. And in a landscape that was increasingly competitive, it sort of lost its edge, and the audience was drifting away. You see, at this point, its contractor hosts had become perfectionists. I know everyone in this audience is probably a perfectionist too, control freak maybe, right? You have to be to run a business. But these guys I'm talking, they were like really, really annoying perfectionists. Never a bent nail, measured twice, cut once, one trip to the Home Depot, not 3 like I had to do on a Saturday. The carpenter on the show, he was Norm, the most saintly carpenter since Jesus. And that is actually a picture of Norm walking on water, believe it or not. Seriously, these guys never made a mistake. They were Martha Stewart in work boots. I had a hunch, though, that the brand was focusing on the wrong thing, that it had lost its purpose. You see, most people misunderstand what brand purpose is, I think. It's not the same thing as ESG or conscious capitalism or corporate social responsibility. It's not that stuff. They're laudable things. Certainly, no question, important. But you can do good and still not matter to people. Brand purpose isn't a slogan or a mission statement either, right? A mission is just, to me, a tactical way to get a job done. Remember the Blues Brothers, Jake and Elwood? We're on a mission from God, Elwood would always say. He and Jake were just actually a couple of blunt tools, right? Think about it. They ended up in jail. Mission accepted. Mission accomplished, movie over, the end. A strong brand purpose, on the other hand, it doesn't end things, it begins them. When it's internal, like a sense of direction, and not external, like someone else's map, purpose helps you understand why you matter to people. And in a changing business landscape, purpose, if you're savvy, is the thing that helps you continually redirect your core capabilities to remain relevant, even as markets and methods and consumer behavior changes, no matter how drastically. And I think that's really important to think about in a world that is moving faster than it ever has, and is likely never to move slower than it is at just this minute. Anyway, as I said, I had this hunch that This Old House, TOH, was focusing on the wrong thing, that people were less interested in being experts, less interested in being perfectionists themselves, and more concerned about doing the best they could, right? Patching the roof, fixing the plumbing, or painting the kitchen, for one pretty elemental reason. For the same reason I did, to make their house a home. Not a perfect home, just one that could shelter loved ones from the daily storm and maybe from the real once-in-a-century storm. Long story short, my team and I did some research, some exercises to refine the hunch and zero in on our purpose. The new purpose became the lens through which we looked at everything we did. The brand was about 30 years old at this time, and we shifted its purpose from that big, perfect remodel to its more simple proposition, right? The thing that we uncovered, that the brand existed to give people the confidence to create a safe space for their family. That's it, to give people the confidence to create a safe space for their family. So with that in mind, I took up writing a column for the magazine. I wrote about the mistakes I made in my own home. That's me tangled up in a garden hose from that era. We launched newer, friendlier TV shows in English and in Spanish. That's SOS Salvo Mi Casa, which we created for Telemundo. We created digital products for apartment dwellers. There's something called The Snug. It was a mobile-first apartment dwelling home improvement app. And we worked on e-commerce and even a mobile game, trying to make things more accessible. It was good, actually. We doubled audience and revenue in the middle of a recession led by a housing crisis. We managed to double revenue. We were even named to Ad Age's prestigious A-list. About a year into our transformation, a woman named Catherine Stewart wrote me a letter. She said she felt she knew all of us after watching the TV show, after reading the magazine. She took the time to write about the work she'd done in her own home or had planned to do had life not gotten in the way. In her case, that meant a tough battle with cancer. She sent along a framed needlepoint poem. We've got it here. You really can't read it because the resolution is poor from the photograph I had of it. But she wrote that this poem reflects the feelings I have about my old houses and my house in particular, but I kind of think it should go where more people will see it. So we published her note, and we printed the poem so more people will see it. It seemed that would fit our renewed brand purpose. And we got other letters, too. One's from a woman telling us how we helped her buy her first home and remodel it, all by herself with just a little help from her dad and from our website. Others sent in photos of the work they did on their houses, and some people wrote in to talk about the memories they had watching the TV show with their parents, the new memories they were creating with their own children watching it now. Using that sense of purpose, we had created a community. We had used that community to sort of be the engine of the business, and things continued to move forward. Trend lines up, work turned on, and about a year later, I got another letter. Dear Scott, it started. Some time ago, you published a letter from my sister. I remember Catherine immediately, of course. I smiled, and then that next moment, I got that sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. Why wasn't Catherine writing me herself? Her sister said that being featured by This Old House was one of Catherine's proudest moments. She said Catherine kept the page her letter appeared on from the magazine, and when she couldn't leave her house anymore, when people would come to visit her, she'd take it out, unfold it, and share it with them. And then her sister sort of finished where we thought it would go. She said Catherine had lost her battle with cancer, that she passed away peacefully, but in her home as she wanted to. Catherine's sister wanted us at This Old House to know that. See, when you understand your purpose and you execute on it the best you can, it's the perfect filter for discarding the wrong message and a perfect focus for directing you to the right one. It connects people to you in a way no other marketing tool can. That was true for TOH and for Catherine, and it's true whether your brand is about home or home improvement, about home insurance, about family or family-sized portions, or DIY or CPG or services or SaaS. It's just true. The thing to keep in mind for everyone here is that purpose isn't what you do. It's that emotional layer underneath, right? As founders, I think this is incredibly important to remember, to understand. And I'd go so far as to argue that your companies are extensions of who you are as people, right? You may be many things, but you are definitely not only defined by selling X or delivering Y. It's deeper. And as a leader, you need to remember the deeper, more personal truth, your truth, and then use it to your advantage. And I've got a great example, I think, of what happens when you do that. Anyone familiar with Carpool Karaoke? Have we all seen it? Yeah. So anyone remember the one with Paul McCartney? I was astonishing segment to me. The Beatles are sort of a religion in my house, but If you go deeper in that segment, it's also a great example of purpose. Here's this man, Paul McCartney, right? One of the most famous, talented people on the globe. He's been in the public eye for 7 decades. And he's going back to his hometown of Liverpool with James Corden. We get there with him. He sings songs in the car. He gives us a tour of Penny Lane. It's kind of amazing. He goes to the barber shop. He stands behind the shelter in the middle of the roundabout. He's recreating the song in this video. Always a smile, his hand out, always ready to shake. People in the shops and on the streets, like I was as I was watching it on video, just mouth open, right? It's amazing, it's astonishing. And all of it finishes at a pub. It's England, so there's got to be a pub involved. This pub is a pub the pre-famous Beatles, the Quarrymen, I guess they were called then, they played at in like 1960. Long time ago. But now it's an afternoon crowd, maybe a lunch crowd. It's full, but quiet. James Corden is there on camera, behind the bar, and he gives the woman a coin who's sitting in front of the bar and says, go play a Beatles song on the jukebox. The woman does that. She goes, puts the coin in, and all of a sudden, you hear it. That first huge, jangly chord as the drapes open, and there behind the drapes is Sir Paul McCartney, in the flesh, rocking out to A Hard Day's Night, right? Paul McCartney is in a pub taking requests. People are running into the pub from the street. Everyone is smiling, everyone's standing. People have tears rolling down their cheeks. People who were not even alive when Beatlemania was a thing were just utterly moved by this moment. And in that moment, with all the smiles and all the handshaking and all the music, you realize that Paul McCartney might be the greatest musician since Mozart, might be the greatest pop star ever. But none of that is actually his purpose. Music is just the thing he does. Paul McCartney could have had a job like the banker or the barber or the fireman he writes about, and he'd still manage to make people smile, right? For us, he's here with one purpose, and he knows it, and it's to bring us joy. That's it, just to bring us joy. He kept that North Star joy from his front parlor with 14-year-old John Lennon to the Quarrymen, to the Beatles, to a solo career, to Wings, to making music with Michael Jackson and even Taylor Swift, right? Paul McCartney adapted for decades until 65 years after he wrote When I'm 64, he's still entertaining fans. He's 80 years old. And he's entertaining tired pub-goers as happily as he surely was when he played a full Shea Stadium in 1965. Purpose gives you staying power. Now, I'm no Paul McCartney. I could not carry a tune in a bucket, so no comparison there. But my 7 predecessors at this old house, between them, all in a total, lasted only 9 years. My tenure running TOH lasted more than 12, right? 9 years for 7 people, 12 years for 1. And I had that tenure not so much because of what I did, but because of what purpose did for us. How it moved us from the surface of the perfect remodel to the deeper, safe space for family. This old house is now in its 45th season on television, a feat which perhaps only a dozen other shows have accomplished in broadcast history, most of them news and sports and soap operas. That tenure stands in total contrast to what was then the parent company of this old house, Time Inc. Time Inc. didn't understand its purpose. Time Inc. was once the largest publisher in the world. That's the Time and Life building that stood in Rockefeller Center in New York City. It had 12,000 employees, 6 or 7 corporate jets. Its brands, People, Time, Fortune, Sports Illustrated, they shaped our culture. When Time Inc. saved Warner Brothers, I guess it was called then, in the late 80s, Time Inc. itself had an inflation-adjusted value of something like more than $80 billion. Big numbers. But like TOH, when I arrived, its trend line was moving in the wrong direction. The division quickly became an albatross around the neck of the merged company in the middle of the last decade and was spun off to stand alone. It was grim, but somehow I thought there was hope. To those who know me, maybe uncharacteristically, but I thought there was hope. What I'd learned at 2OH, I'd take and go to my CEO with an idea for our company, a way we could matter to our clients or our customers, right? A way we could survive the digital disruption that was rapidly undermining the foundation of Time Inc. To be fair, my ideas might not have helped at all, but the lesson for us today really is my boss's reaction to them. "We don't know anything about TV. We're a magazine company," he would say to me. That's how my boss would respond. Or, "We don't know anything about video. We're a magazine company. We don't know anything about websites. We don't know anything about content marketing, about social media, about e-commerce, about product licensing, about mobile gaming," over and over and over again, all the time. We're a magazine company. Time Inc. was a magazine to its leadership, ink and pictures on paper. It wasn't the deeper thing, right? It could have been seen as something like America's most trusted source of news and information. It could have been platform agnostic, right? Who cares how we delivered it to the consumer? It could have been essential with a purpose like that. But it was ink and pictures on paper, a magazine company. And perhaps that's why it famously passed on purchases of a young broadcast equivalent to Sports Illustrated, we know now as ESPN, and maybe even more remarkably, a young search engine company, which is now known as Google. Pure arrogance, utter lack of brand purpose. Time Inc. was about magazines like Blockbuster was about VCR tapes and DVDs, not delivering entertainment. Or like Kodak was about selling film and processing pictures, not sharing moments, sharing life. That was their famous tagline, and probably what could have been the good start to a brand purpose, one that might have shown them that their consumer was increasingly interested in digital photography, a technology we all know that Kodak actually invented. That lack of purpose, it can destroy a business. Time Inc. is gone now. Its brand sold off for something like 2.5% of that once $80 billion plus valuation. I said it before, but I feel like it bears repeating. Purpose helps you understand why you matter to people. In a changing landscape, purpose helps you continually redirect your core capabilities to remain relevant. And to me, put simply, it's really the basis of building a strong business, something I think too many companies have forgotten about. Those outfits, they've replaced purpose with process and ignored the fundamentals of brand building and marketing, which really, right, is just to meet the needs and wants of people and companies, not to digitally dog someone until they finally hit the PayPal button or send in a purchase order. Process, like the technology that so often accompanies it, is just a tool. And tools on their own, like Jake and Elwood, right, they're kind of useless. It's only when you connect tools with the right people and the right purpose that they deliver meaning and meaningful results. Someone, Seth Godin, I think it was, said, if you want to know if you have succeeded with your business, ask yourself this question. If you woke up tomorrow and your brand was gone, would anyone miss it? Ask yourself that about your business and your own company. Ask that. I do that every day at Inc. And when I think back to my time at this old house, and I ask myself that question, if I woke up tomorrow and my brand was gone, would anyone really miss it? Well, I know what Catherine Stewart and her sister would say. Thank you.